Hello, everybody. I'm happy to continue our career week. Today, it's our friend Jordan Lee is gonna talk about marketing during recess and the rises of marketing analysis. Uh, I'm not too sure what else do I need to talk about during this time, but I'm happy to introduce you, and I'm happy that such an interesting person is with us. Jordan Lee, furthermore, is everything with you on your.
All right, thank you very much. Um, if I do see any questions that needs to be addressed straight away, I will. Otherwise, there will be a question and answer session at the end of this first part. In between the two parts, so we have marketing during recession, followed by the rise of marketing analytics. There will be a 4-minute break in between for you guys to get water and so on. So if you need to leave, don't leave for the next 40 minutes, 45 minutes or so. Let's get started. So a little bit about me. So I've got a background in economics as well. So I studied here in England at the University of Warwick. I have done businesses. Myself in different sectors such as education, events, and retail. So for the last 10 years plus, I have been working as a marketing consultant, and I have worked with some of the largest companies, such as Atkins, PwC, and Barclays Bank. And I do have a professional background in data analytics, so that's going to be, especially pertinent, especially useful when we come to the second part of this webinar. So a lot of my clients, they find me really different because I bring 3 different perspectives when confronted with marketing or business questions. So I'm drawing on my background in business and economics, drawing on all the marketing work that I've done over the last 10 years, as well as my background in data and analytics. So it's multidisciplinary. In this talk, I'll be giving you a lot of theory as well as practical cases. So let's get started. Marketing during a recession. In the first half of this webinar, we'll be talking about recessions, the winning mentality that we should have, as well as the opportunities that we get for both the individual, that's you and me, as well as for brands, companies, and businesses. What we are not going to cover in this talk, we're not going to talk about the human cost of the pandemic, which is quite sad. We've got lives being lost, people going to hospitals and all that. So that's all understood. We will not be talking about epidemiology. We will not be talking about the study of infectious diseases. We're not going to be talking about public health or lockdowns or fines or Putin putting lion on the streets of Moscow. And we're definitely not going to talk about toilet paper. All right. So most people are expecting a recession to take place this year. Okay. So some of the big banks out there, when you look at Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, and UBS, all predicting a US recession or a global recession this year. Some banks, such as the Bank of America, they are saying that right now we are already in a recession. Okay, and even the IMF is predicting the worst recession since the Great Depression of 1929 to 1932. Now, what is a recession? I think you guys are, obviously in an economics university, so hopefully you know what a recession is. In the US, a recession is defined as a decline in economic activity. Okay, and so you observe that in GDP falling, unemployment rising, and a number of other economic factors. So this is definition used by the National Bureau of Economic Research, or the NBER. And they decide, they will actually look back and say, yes, a recession happened, or no, it didn't. Elsewhere in the world, we do not have an agency telling us whether a recession has taken place or not. Elsewhere in the world, it's very straightforward. If we get 6 months of GDP falling, that's a recession. Okay, it's very, very straightforward elsewhere in the world. But one thing to know is that recessions are backward looking. So you only know if you have experienced a recession a few months after the recession takes place. Now, what is the right business marketing psychology to have, the right mentality to have during a recession? Well, let's imagine that you see the stock market falling 30%. How will most people react? What do you think? Most people would, experience fear, experience panic. They'll be confused, they'll be shocked, they'll be surprised. Imagine if you are this guy, and I feel bad saying, yeah, what would this guy do? This guy will, borrow money from banks and buy because he sees an opportunity. And this is what we as marketers, as entrepreneurs, as business people, we should do. We should have the mentality to see every recession, every decline as an opportunity. As Warren Buffett says, be fearful when other people are greedy, but when other people are fearful, like during this time, you should be greedy. Look at the opportunities, find out what the opportunities are, and seize and take those opportunities. Okay? Because the opposite of that is what most people would do, which is when the economy is on the up, they would buy high, and when there is a crash, they would sell low. They buy high, sell low, which is the opposite of what you need. So I can see that Ekaterina is having bad sound. So if you are having sound quality issues, this webinar will be recorded. So, we will send this out to you guys later on. So let's look at opportunity from an individual level. Okay, from an individual perspective. Most executives out there consider time to be a barrier to strategic thinking. So what I would say is that as an individual, even as students, as you guys are, this is a great time to take some time out, to undertake some thinking and understand what is it that you want to do with your life, with your business, with your marketing strategy. What I'm showing here is not just a picture of some trees. This is actually the Sand Walk, which is about a distance from central London, which is literally in the house of Charles Darwin. When Charles Darwin needed to think, well, firstly, he moved out of London into a nice, quiet house to write his book, his famous book. And when he needed to think, he would take a walk on this sand walk. And that is what we as marketers need to do. Imagine working as a marketing manager. How's your day like? Every day you're thinking about what campaign should I run? How much money am I spending on advertising? How can I get more leads? What am I doing with my product? What are customers saying? And you have no time to undertake strategic thinking. This is the best time, to actually take some time out and to think strategically. There is also a difference between, what we call learning time and performing time. What you realize is that once you leave university, the amount of time that you spend learning actually reduces, because when you get a job, your focus is on performing, producing, doing. What recessions do is that they force individuals and they force companies to learn, and that can be very useful for lots of reasons. And there's also a different kind of, and there are two ways of thinking as well. Usually what we do is that we do vertical thinking. That is to say that you work in a company as a marketer, and you are given the responsibility of handling emails, and that's all you care about. Your job is thinking about what subject line do I write, what images do I use, what do I write about, how do I send sending it to people, what time should I send it, tracking email open rates, click rates, and so on. During a recession or during a downtime, you get the opportunity for horizontal thinking, to think about things that you wouldn't otherwise think about. I'll give you an example. One of my clients, for the first time ever, is running a webinar tomorrow, which I'm helping with. And this is something that they wouldn't otherwise do. Most of the time, they're busy with work, but because of the social lockdown, they are forced to explore other opportunities. They are thinking horizontally, and who knows, they may find that webinars are a great way for them to connect with customers or potential customers, and they may keep doing it. There's an interesting example here, which is in London, some years back, there were a few train lines where the drivers went on strike. So the train lines were not working. And so people had to find new ways of traveling from home to work. Some researchers, they looked at anonymized data. So they looked at Oyster card data, that you use to tap to access the train systems. And they looked at how people got around before, during, and after the strikes. And what they found was that after the strike, some people continue to act in a different way from what they did before the strike. So what the strike did essentially was to force people to look for alternatives, and some people found that those alternatives were good alternatives. And there's a lesson in there for us and for businesses. Now, let's talk about the big topic, the exciting topic, which is recessions as an opportunity for brands and for businesses. Now, there are going to be three types of businesses, all right, in any recession. You have the recessions you've got businesses who are winners, who are going to do very well. You have some businesses who are losers. They're going to do quite badly. And you have a group in between, the meh group in between, who will neither do very well and they wouldn't do very badly either. Now, in this particular recession, who are the losers? They're going to be companies like your travel companies, your airlines, any physical consumer services businesses like gyms, restaurants, if you consider McDonald's a restaurant, and clothes shop that you buy in the shops. Now, who are the ones who we find doing very well? We see food delivery businesses like Uber Eats. We see grocery stores like Tesco, as well as some apps out there like TikTok, because people have time on their hands and they're trying to connect with their friends and maintain a social life. But there are also businesses out there who are not really affected. The classic cases are your utility companies. So we're talking about your electricity company, gas, phone companies like Vodafone, and so on. Some of the ultra luxury categories as well, like Aston Martin. The reason for this is you have, in the ultra luxury sector, firstly, Rich people don't tend to be very affected by recessions, if you haven't noticed. And factor number two is that the kind of people who buy Aston Martin, they buy it not because they need it, it's not essential, but they choose to buy it. And it is a kind of choice that is not really affected by recessions. And finally, you have some companies like ASOS, which have a very strong online e-commerce platform that's able to absorb some of this shock of people not being able to shop offline. Well, actually, sorry. For ASOS is a purely online retailer, so they're not really affected at all. Yes, some people are reducing their spend, but other than that, they're not really affected in the way that you might expect British Airways to be. Now, how are companies currently reacting to the recession? Lots of you may have seen in your emails, things like this. Messages from the CEO, messages from the founder, telling them that they're here to help you, they're here on your side. I'm not sure how you feel, but these kind of responses add no value to me. Okay, it does nothing to me. And not only that, it is quite striking how similar the response is. Every single company, or almost every single company, is doing the same thing, which is usually not a good marketing approach or promotional message. And this is summed up amazingly by this guy, Dr. Ryan Wallman. He says, I honestly had no idea there were so many companies that are here for me at this time, at this difficult time. And I'm sure we all feel the same. Let's see more examples of marketing gone wrong at this time. You all may have seen things like that. Companies playing around with their logos. Okay, McDonald's separating the M, Volkswagen, Audi, and Coca-Cola to emphasize or to show that they are with you in this time of social distancing. But don't get me wrong. I mean, there is a very good role for playing with logos, playing with your brand codes in such a way. It's a bit playful. It's kind of a little secret between the brand and the customer to say, we know, you understand this, you know what we're doing, and it's very smart. And it works well sometimes. But during a recession, especially a recession that's going to be caused by this pandemic, it just feels wrong. It doesn't feel right. It feels like the wrong thing to do. It feels a bit silly. Now, the best thing to do is probably to do what Burberry does, which is to stay on message. Burberry has kept entirely on message. They understand that there is nothing that they can do about the recession. There's nothing they can do about the pandemic. There's nothing they can do. What they choose to do is to stay on message, showing you, pictures of hairy guys' arms and so on, but staying on message, showing classic, their timeless pieces, and just emphasizing the power of their brand. And that is what companies should be doing. But why do we see so many companies making these mistakes, even the big companies? Why are they making these mistakes? And the reason is that in many companies, marketing is seen as promotion, right? Where the role of the marketing team is communications, is about sending emails, writing advertisements, doing campaigns, going on TV, radio, and so on. It's all about comms. And so when you get a recession, what does the marketing team do? They think, oh, we have to say something about it, because that's all they do, which is quite sad, actually. I mean, as a marketer, I think it's quite sad. But for those of you who have done marketing degrees or have done a marketing module, you will know that there is something which is 100 years old called the marketing mix, also known as the 4 Ps. So there are other things that marketers can do. That includes pricing, that includes place, which is essentially distribution channels. How do we distribute our product, whether it's online, through a retailer, through a wholesaler, and so on. And product, all right? And when marketers say product, we don't just mean the physical product, we mean everything that consumer consumes. So if you think about Starbucks, the product is not the coffee, it is everything from the packaging to the in-store experience to the fact that the person making you your coffee would ask for your name and write your name on the cup. All of that is what you consume. All of that is the product. And that's where marketers should actually be involved in product development. Not many are. So what can marketers do? When it comes to price, well, you see companies like Adobe, who does who runs Photoshop, right? What they do is that they've given free trials to everyone, and that sounds like a good thing for them to do, but I'm sure that they know that's also a good thing for them to do, because essentially they are getting people to try that product at this time, getting very good press, very good media coverage for it, and at the end of it, they haven't really lost any money, but a lot of these people may decide, having picked up those skills in Photoshop and all the other products that they do, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, and so on, to subscribe to the Adobe system. You get the marketing team at Uber Eats, food delivery. What have they done? They have given a 50% discount to health workers in the UK, people working in the hospitals. Again, that seems like a very good thing to do, and I'm sure it is. But the role of the marketing team is not just to do good. The role of the marketing team is to make money for the business. So I assure you, what Uber Eats is doing is also a good thing financially for them. If you think about it, who are the people who are going to order the most food delivery on Uber Eats? They are going to the people who are stuck at home and not working. Who are they? They are almost everyone in the economy. The people who are not using Uber Eats are the people stuck in the hospitals, working 12 hours a day. They are not staying at home. They're not going to, they don't really need food delivery as much as the rest of the population. And so it makes sense, even forget the pandemic, even without the pandemic, it makes sense for you to offer a discount to somebody who doesn't need your product as much. And so it makes sense. It's actually a very smart move. Another P, place. You have lots of companies out there who are now forced to go on, to move online. So using systems, platforms such as Shopify, or you see universities, including HSE, moving some of their lectures online. And by the way, students are customers as well, customers for educational services. And you get, I was talking to some coaches doing coaching. I'm not talking about sports coaching, but doing voice coaching online as well via Zoom. So businesses, from a marketing strategy perspective, is saying, how can we change the way, or how can we improve the way we distribute our product to customers? And the last P, product development. Now, when I talk about product, as I said, it's not just about companies changing their product, such as how Louis Vuitton, the French luxury clothes manufacturer, or fashion manufacturer rather, is making hand sanitizer for the French health sector, or Barbour in the UK producing hospital gowns for doctors and nurses. Yes, that is relevant, but what can the rest of us do? What can other brands do? Well, let's look at what some of these companies like Microsoft Teams and Facebook are doing. Microsoft Teams recognizes that there are particular features that are going to be most useful for people using their software at this time. So they have prioritized product development for those particular features, and that is coming over the past few weeks, and in the weeks to come, there'll be new product development for their platform. Facebook has reacted to this as well. Initially, their role was about combating fake news on the channel. At this moment, they've realized that there are some products that they offer which are not going to be as important to people, such as Facebook Marketplace, for people to buy and sell stuff online. So what Facebook has done is that they have reprioritized, they have moved engineers from developing Marketplace and moved them into developing things like Facebook Messenger, and other social features on their platform. And that is really, really smart. So that is what, I'm hoping that you get a flavor of all the things that marketers can do besides just promotion and comms, okay, communications. Now, let's think about the tactical opportunities. We know that recessions are temporary, okay? We know that in a recession, unemployment rises, companies go out of business, and the prices of product and labor, salary and wages, fall. Again, imagine you are Warren Buffett, just that you are not an investor, but you are a business person or a marketer. You should be able to see some opportunities here. People are fearful, but if you see opportunities, you are thinking, hang on, I can now advertise for cheaper. Things are really cheap. So one of my clients used to pay $5 to get an email lead. And nowadays they can get an email lead for under $2. So what's the smart thing to do? Which is exactly what I advise them to do, is to increase their marketing spend, their advertising spend, because that is going to help you to build your customer base. And even if it's not useful right now, during the recovery, because recessions are temporary, during the recovery, you can then go out to these people, send them emails, do sales calls, and so on, and try to sell in the recovery. It's a good investment to make now for the long term. So I talked about lead generation, gathering leads, name, email addresses, phone numbers, and so on. Some companies will be looking at competitors who are going out of business and say, can we buy them? Again, you can buy them really, really cheap. I talk about product development. Some companies out there who are thinking long term, they know that there are lots of computer engineers, product engineers out there, unemployed, not working, or even if they're working, they're on working 2-3 days a week, and they're happy to take on additional work. If you are thinking long term, you can say, let me hire another 4 more product engineers, build up my product such that when the recovery comes, I will have a very good product that I built cheaply, ready to launch. Okay, so hopefully that's useful and give you an idea of the strategic mindset that we need to have as marketers, as business people. Okay, and it is this: invest, invest, invest. Make sure that you spend this time to position your brand in a way to exploit, okay, to benefit from the recovery that will come. It will come. Now, I say that it will come. When will it come? What we know is that recessions that are caused by health pandemics, like the one now, they tend to be very short-lived. Okay, it is what economists call V-shape. Okay, you get a crash, but a really quick recovery as well. And they tend to last about 1 year. Why is this? Well, if you think about it, pandemic-based recessions, they happen not because of any economic factors. There is nothing that is wrong about the economy that caused the recession. Now, most other economic recessions, like the one in 2007, 2008, that was a recession that was caused because of something that was wrong with the economy, and so the recovery took a long time. Pandemic-based recessions, it is what economists call an exogenous shock. Okay, it's a shock that happens from outside the economy. And so when the pandemic is over, you get lots of pent-up demand, lots of people who are eager to go out, go back to the restaurants, go back dating, and so on. And that's where you get the huge rebound. And these are some examples that I have on screen. So on the left, you have the 1958 H2N2 flu. You have the H3N2 flu in the middle, and the most recent SARS outbreak on the right in 2002. Again, tending to last about 1 year and a fairly sharp recovery. Now, what happens? Here, I see a question on screen. What happens if businesses just simply do not have the cash? Okay, and they are in survival mode. Now, obviously, if companies are in survival mode, and I'll touch on this, I'll actually mention this point later. If they're in survival mode, then I guess they have no choice. They have to cut back on their spend, go into a hibernation, as though you're a bear trying to survive winter, go into hibernation and hope that by the end of the pandemic, they will still be alive. But they should not have been in that position in the first place. Businesses should always save and prepare for a rainy day. All right. So if businesses find themselves in such a situation, well, there's not much they can do. But what they should have done is that they should have saved for a rainy day, rather than paying out bonuses, paying out stock dividends, and so on. They need to save and invest for a rainy day, for cases like this. It's almost like, back to the Warren Buffett example. Prior to this crash, Warren Buffett was criticized by the people investing in his company. Why is Warren Buffett sitting on so much cash? Warren Buffett was choosing not to invest in stocks and shares. He was sitting on a huge cash pile. Why? Because he was waiting exactly for something like this to happen before he can buy and invest. And as business people, we need to have the same mentality as well. Now, what are your competitors doing? I assure you, the market is cutting their advertising spend across the board. If we look at this graph, and this goes back to, I tried to find out the first research that I could dig up. This goes back to 1941, where Wagner tracked advertising spend against industrial production, which is one of the major component of GDP. And it tracks very nicely. When the economy falls, advertising spend falls. And if you are interested in looking at his paper, I'm sure all of you are very diligent students and you're taking notes and you're going to be looking at this paper after this webinar. You will see that he's done the same chart for a number of other things, tracking it with employment. When employment falls, when GDP falls, when things are looking bad, advertising falls. When things are looking good, advertising goes up. Okay? So when your advertisers are cut, so trust me, your competitors are cutting back. What you should be doing, again, remember what Warren Buffett says, you should be looking at opportunities. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this graph. It is a very important graph. Okay. What we're saying is that there is almost a one-to-one relationship between your market share on the x-axis, on the horizontal axis, your market share, with your share of voice. What share of voice is essentially your share of advertising spend. So you can imagine that if you are a customer, and you're looking at all the brands out there, some brands are shouting 20% of the time, some brands have got 30% of your attention, and so on. And there's been lots of academic research on this. It's very scary, it seems quite scary actually, it's almost a one-to-one relationship. That in the long run, the equilibrium is that a company with 10% market share tends to have 10% of the overall advertising spend in the market. Okay, and larger companies with 80%, 50% tend to have 50% of the advertising spend. That is the equilibrium. So what that means also is that brands that advertise less than a market share would tend to shrink in size, and brands that overinvest in their advertising will tend to grow. So imagine that you are this company, 4% market share, and you are shouting, or in the market of in the advertising market for your particular industry, you've got 4% of the advertising spend. Now, your competitors are cutting back on their marketing spend. So even if you keep the same level of advertising, your share of voice goes up. Not only that, your share of voice goes up because advertising is now cheaper. So per person that you know, per click, per impression, you know, whatever metric you want to look at, you know, is now more effective. And if you are smart, you know, based on everything I've said so far, if you're smart, you will also increase your advertising spend. So your share of voice will go up to say 6%. What happens then is that in the long run, you will expect your market share to grow just by investing at this time. And you know, I just want to give you one research on this. This is research done back in a few years ago, looking at some of the big supermarkets in the UK. So all of these are UK supermarkets. On the x-axis, on the horizontal axis, you have the excess share of voice. So you can see that on the right, you have Aldi, who is advertising at 8% more than their market share. And on the left, you have Tesco, who is advertising at 10% less than their market share. Now, on the y-axis, you can see what happened in 2014. The supermarkets that advertise more than the market share, they tended to grow. Supermarkets that advertise less than their market share tended to shrink. And that was just after 12 months. Okay, and there are lots and lots and lots of research like that. Okay, so let me give you some other examples. All right, so in the 1920s, there was a the market leader for breakfast cereal was a company called Post. Okay, market leader, the number one leader. I know what you're thinking. Who the hell is Post? You've never heard of it. Well, you know why? Because during the Great Recession, they cut back on their advertising budget significantly. What did Kellogg's do? Kellogg's doubled their advertising spend. They invested in radio. They did product development. They introduced a new cereal called Rice Krispies. And, you know, and what happened? Kellogg's profits grew 30% over the next few years and became the leading breakfast cereal brand in the US and dominant across the world. Let's look at another recession, okay, a bit more recent, 1990, 1991. I say it's recent, but some of you were not born then. What happened? Let's look. McDonald's decided to drop advertising, their advertising budget. Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, they spotted this and they said, you know what, we're going to increase our advertising. What happened? By the end of the recession, the sales for McDonald's dropped 28%. Sales for Pizza Hut and Taco Bell grew 61% for Pizza Hut, 40% for Taco Bell, right? Invest in a recession and it will help. Now let's look at academic research. Okay, this is the very first empirical research that I can find, that I know of. So Vail in 1927, he studied more than 200 companies in the US, trying to look at the 1920 to 1923 recession. He found that the group of companies, and by the way, it's all indexed at 100, yeah? So we start all companies at 100. He found that companies that increased their advertising, by the end of the recession and 1 year after, they were 21% higher in terms of sales, whereas those who dropped their advertising, by the end of the recession, they were actually worse off. And there's quite a big gap if you think about it, a difference of 23%, 23 percentage points. And I can tell you that any business leader would kill to get a 23% higher sales than they would otherwise have gotten. And you might be thinking, maybe it is different. Okay, maybe the group that increased advertising, they are in a different industry. Well, what Vail did was that he did the same analysis, he broke it down into different industries. And you see exactly the same thing. If you look at his paper, you will see he's done it for groceries. Okay, so your people selling groceries, same pattern. Or looking at cars. Okay, for cars, if you increase your advertising, you start at 100, by the end you're 95, you're 5% down. But if you had not advertised, you have done even worse. Okay? And you can look at his paper. I think there were seven, 8 industries in there. Okay, the same pattern that you see in every single industry. From then till now, there has been lots of research. I'm not going to take you through that, but there's research done for the 1970 recession that showed that again, if you increase your advertising spend, you will benefit in terms of sales and profit. Same thing for 1974, 75 recession. Okay, lots of examples there. Okay. The evidence in the marketing literature is solid. Okay, and this is for the most recent recession conducted by Peter Field, really famous marketing researcher. Again, you can see, if you look at the bottom chart, okay, the companies with the highest ESOV, excess share of voice, so that's share of voice over the market share. Okay, those who invested or had excess share of voice, they had the most growth. Those who had excess share of voice that's 0% or less, they only grew about 1% a year. Okay, invest. So we've gotten to the end. All right, so let me just summarize all the points that I mentioned, because I know I did talk a lot in the last 45 minutes. On a personal level, what should you be doing? You should be taking the time to learn, explore, and to think, and hopefully to grow yourself as marketers or as students, to grow your skills. That's going to be useful. Businesses should try to find technical opportunities. So we're talking about, not just pricing opportunities, but your 4 Ps. Okay, so price, promotion, place, and product. Unless you are trying to survive, do not panic, do not stop advertising. Okay, what you should be doing is to keep investing in long-term branding, long-term advertising. It will pay off. Okay, and if possible, increase your spend. It will pay off tremendously. So that's the end of part 1. We're going to do some quick Q&As, and then after the Q&A, we'll take a 4-minute break, and then we'll do part 2, which is marketing, the rise of marketing analytics. Now, before I talk about questions, my team will kill me if I do not do a little bit of promotion here, which is that I am actually launching an marketing analytics for entrepreneurs course. So if you do want to get some updates, do visit my website. The website link is there, gordonlee.co.uk/HSE. If you put your name and email address as well, I will send you the recording for this webinar, and you will get some of the articles that I write on my blog and so on. If you ever want to unsubscribe, why would you want to? But even if you want to unsubscribe, you can do it easily. Anytime you get an email, just hit unsubscribe, and you'll never hear from me again. Good. So let's do questions. I'm not sure whether we need a moderator for this. I'm happy to take the questions myself. So the first question that comes in, sorry, I can't read Cyrillic, so I can't name you. What should the company do now if so it doesn't have time to invest? Yeah, okay. So what should the company do if it's focusing on paying its workers and it doesn't have the ability to invest in advertising? Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, there are two things, right? In the first place, companies should not find themselves in such a situation. You should be investing and saving for a rainy day like this. They should be building up a war chest, essentially. Okay. But if they do find themselves in such a situation, I guess, if it's a question of survival, they have to focus on surviving. And I guess, because they made a mistake in not saving for such a time, they will have to pay the cost. And the cost is either they go out of business, or by the end of the recession, because they were not investing, their market share is going to be lower than it otherwise would. So, what's moral story? As your mom says, as all your mothers say, I'm sure, save, because you may need it one day. Okay. Now, actually, there was some other research. I should probably mention this. So I gave a bit of a one-sided presentation, right, where I talk about investment. There is actually research by the Harvard Business Review where they said if companies don't invest, they do the worst. If companies that choose to increase their advertising, they do better. Now, what companies perform the best are those companies that actually undertake a combination of both, where they cut out some of the unnecessary low effectiveness spend, and they increase their advertising. So I guess the moral story is it's actually a combination of both. If you see anything that's not working, this is the time to go in there and see what is the waste that we can cut, and and then for you to say, with the money that I saved, where should I put that? Okay, so it's a combination of both. Next question: where did I find results of such market research? Should I share it? So if you again go to my website, put in your email address, I will send you a version of the recording. You can watch the recording. I gave some of the person's names, like Vale 1927, and you can go and search for it. Because all of you are university students, I think you should be able to access a lot of these academic papers for free via your university website or your university library credentials. So again, put your email down there, and if the recording doesn't give you what you need, send me an email. All right. My email is on my website again. It's gordon@gordonlee.co.uk. I will send you, the list of references for you to look at. Now, what should a company do if it's mostly offline? Okay. So I'll give you some. So that's a very interesting one. So one of my clients is actually a retailer that sells bespoke jewelry. And because of the nature of the product that costs thousands of dollars for one item, people don't actually go online and just buy it. They need to actually go down, talk to a consultant who will then work with them to design a jewelry and then to sell it. I don't tend to work with people like personal trainers and all that. Again, they tend to have their channel of distribution that's offline. Now, what companies should do who are mainly offline is to look at two things, right? Now, the first thing is, can you move anything online? So it may be that the product cannot be moved online because, let's say, I'm a personal trainer. Can I move the product online? Well, it depends. Do I want to conduct webcam personal training where you lift weights in front of the trainer who is 100 miles away? Maybe, maybe not. But what you can do is to focus on things like lead generation. Now, if you're a personal trainer, let's face it, there is not a lot you can do at this time. If you're an offline business, there's not a lot you can do. What you can do is to say, I'm going to just focus on lead generation. I'm going to focus on getting email addresses, because I know that during this time, a lot of people are actually at home. They're not exercising. They're not going to the gym. And that by the end of the recession, maybe lots of people want to go to the gym. And therefore, there'll be a market for me. What I should do now is to collect those email addresses, get them to follow me on Instagram to see my content and to be familiar with me, such that during the recovery, they would rather come to me than to go to somebody else whom they have never seen before. And back to my client who does jewelry, again, we've done lots of things like saying, what can we move online? Can we do things like not moving the product to the physical product? We can't move that online, but we can move some of the consultation online, and we use a courier to ship out the stuff. It's not ideal, but it is what they can do. Now, let's just take the last question, which is it reasonable to invest in real estate? Firstly, I'm not a real estate expert. Yes, I do my own investment. I tend to invest in stocks and shares, but I'm not an expert. I do not want to be giving advice. Firstly, I'm not sure whether it's legal for me to give financial advice because I'm not a certified financial advisor. And secondly, if I give bad advice, I know someone might kill me if they lose lots of money. So unfortunately, I cannot do that. But what I can tell you is that in general, think like Warren Buffett, okay? Think like all the smart marketers and business people out there. Every time there's a crash, there is an opportunity, and it is up to you to find it. Okay, and that's the end of questions. If we have any more questions, all you need to do is, again, go to my website, fill in the form, give me your details. There's a section at the bottom where you can put comments. If you have questions, put it down there. I'll be happy to answer your questions, as long as it doesn't involve me giving you free 10 hours of consultation. All right, so as promised, it will be a 4-minute break. So we'll come back at what time is it now? 6:30 in St. Petersburg. So sorry, 6:25 in St. Petersburg. So we'll come back at 6:30 and we'll do part 2. See you then. All right. So welcome back. I hope you made yourself a nice hot cup of tea, which I have, because I'm in, well, it's what you do in Britain. Every minute you get, make yourself a cup of tea. So, okay, and see my screen? Yep, you can. That's brilliant. Okay, so the rise of marketing analytics. What will we be talking about today? Okay, so I'm going to give you an introduction to marketing analytics, give you a flavor of the marketing analytics tools that are out there, some insight into the history and trends, okay, what has happened so far in marketing analytics, what is the current state of marketing analytics, what are some of the principles that will be useful for you, either as a marketer, a marketing analyst, or a business person. And at the end of the talk, I will show you 2 very simple analytical methods that you can use if you have a business. I'm told that a lot of you are entrepreneurial and have your own business that you can do either now or on your projects or in the future. So let's start. What is marketing analytics? The simple definition for marketing analytics is that it is data analytics that you apply in marketing. Very straightforward. It's almost like if you're thinking of in economics, if you take data analytics and you apply that in economics, you get econometrics. Or in biology, if you apply data analytics in biology, you get biostatistics. All right, so this is the simple definition for marketing analytics. But underneath this simple analytics is, or rather are, 2 concepts, which is data analytics and marketing. And we'll talk about each of those things. Now, what is marketing? If you were here for my earlier talk, and I think most of you were, you hear me say that marketing is actually very broad. What we think of marketing, of as comms, emails, advertising, and so on, is actually only one part of marketing. Okay, marketing is a holistic philosophy. It's a way of thinking. My favorite definition for marketing comes from this guy called Peter, known as the father of modern management thinking. He said Marketing is not only broader than selling, it's not even an activity. Marketing is the whole business seen from the point of view of the customer. Okay, so everything that the business does from the point of view of the customer, that is what marketing is. Another good definition comes from Philip Kotler, who is a marketing professor and actually a student of Peter Drucker. Philip Kotler says that marketing is the science and art of exploring, creating, and delivering value to satisfy the needs of the target market and to make a profit. And so he introduces this concept of value. Because if you think about it, companies have to create value, whether it's building a brand, trying to find more efficient processes to make a product, trying to produce great products, trying to create huge feel-good factors for people. Companies have to produce all these value in order to obtain a value, which is obtained in the form of a price. So if you think of the marketing mix, I talked about the 4 Ps. Price is what we get in return. What we as the business give to customers, that is your promotion, your place, and your product. Okay. I'm going to throw in my own definition. It's a bit shameless for me to put my face there alongside those 2 great people. But my definition of marketing is everything that a business does that identifies, creates, communicates, delivers, and exchanges value with its customers to satisfy their needs and wants. So I've included the whole value chain in my definition. Okay. Sorry, I'm told that people can't see my presentation. I'm so sorry about that. It's a good thing that you guys mentioned that earlier before I cut too much. So again, those 2 guys. I'll put their faces up. 2 handsome guys. Okay, and the 2 quotes that I just used of Peter Drucker and Philip Kotler. That is my definition. Again, what I'm doing is to capture the whole value chain. Okay, from identifying the value, and that's where market research comes in. Creating, communicating, that's where the comms comes in. Delivering, that is the place, the place P of the 4 Ps of marketing, and exchanges value with its customers. So now that we talk about marketing, let's talk about data analytics. What is data analytics? Data analytics is the entire process of taking raw data, converting that into information, meaningful insight, and using that insight to advise on a particular action. Okay, whether it's a business decision, what market should we go into, what product features to develop, and so on. Okay, so that's what data analytics is. And what it uses is a combination of tools, metrics, and models. Now, I do not have the time to go into all of those 3 things, tools, metrics, and models. But just very quickly, I'll give you a flavor and understanding of all the marketing tools, marketing analytics tools that are out there. Okay, so just some examples, right? So we have customer relationship management tools on the top right. So you have HubSpot and Salesforce. Okay, so that's your CRM systems. Usually or traditionally, these are tools used in B2B organizations, so businesses selling to businesses. But nowadays, you use CRM, customer relationship management systems, even for B2C businesses, so businesses selling to consumers. Okay, so whenever I manage a relationship, they will capture everything about the customer, the information about them, information about their behavior, the emails that they open, the emails that they click on, and so on. Okay, and within those systems, you have things called CRM analytics. Okay, embedded in those systems, you have CRM analytics. There are some tools here, which is what we call EFM, okay, EFM, which is Enterprise Feedback Management. So that would be your Qualtrics and your SurveyMonkey. Okay, so these are systems out there for you to send customer surveys to get feedback. And again, you can do analytics from within those systems. You have what we call the digital analytics. So you can see Google Analytics, which is very popular. Some of the bigger companies, they prefer to use Adobe Analytics and Mixpanel. Again, what digital analytics platforms do is that they allow you to analyze your customer acquisition, your customer demographics, so how old they are, their interests, male or female, and so on. For all your digital channels, so that would be your website, app, and certain channels like for Google, because Google owns YouTube, you can plant Google Analytics on your YouTube channel to understand analytics there. And then there are some things there which are more that requires more programming. So you have your R, your Python, and your SQL, okay, a bit more programming languages based. You have advertising platforms like Google Ads and Facebook Ads in the middle. Again, advertising, you're spending lots of money. What Google Ads and Facebook Ads have done is that they have developed analytics tools in their platforms themselves to enable advertisers to understand how well the advertising is doing. And they're doing that for free, but because they know that by helping advertisers are going to spend more on their platforms. So that's why they do it. You have email, marketing automation tools. And when we say marketing automation, we usually mean email tools. So your Eloqua, MailChimp, and Marketo at the top, these are your marketing automation tools. On the bottom, we have Looker, Power BI, and Tableau. These are what you call your business intelligence, your BI tools, or your data visualization tools. So you can create very nice looking dashboards, very nice looking reports in there. But increasingly, a lot of these tools are also being used to do analytics themselves, more technical analytics. So not just making nice reports, nice graphs, but also actually doing exploratory analysis where you can look at, okay, let's do pie chart for variable A. What about variable B? What if we do what if we scatter B against C or C against D? What if we color it by this category and that? So exploratory analysis. You have your search engine tools, okay, like Moz and SEMrush. Again, tools out there to analyze the performance of your search engine results. So how well ranked is your website, okay, whether on Google or Yandex or something else. And also I put in Excel, right, because everybody knows Excel. The funny thing is, for marketing analysts, unless you're coming in from a data analytics angle, so my professional background is data analytics. So unless you're coming in from the angle, most marketing analysts would actually be using a lot of Excel. So being familiar with Excel is important. And unless you're working with millions of rows of data, Excel is surprisingly flexible. And it's actually good enough for a lot of the analytics that you want to do in a small business. Now, I have done work for things like in the finance industry for a big British bank and so on, where we're looking at it could be hundreds of thousands of data every day, 100,000 rows of data every day. So obviously we can't use Excel. And also there's a data governance, data security aspect of that as well. But otherwise, for most businesses, most entrepreneurs, Excel will be great. And it's also the tool that I'll be teaching the most in my marketing analytics course, which is going to be a combination of technical and practical stuff. So enough about that. Let's talk about history and trends. Okay, so I think it's because of things like Google Analytics that we think that analytics is very new, but it's not true. Marketing analytics is very, very, very old. So I'm not sure if you guys have heard of know what copywriting is. So copywriting is essentially writing a good ad. All right. So nowadays it could be, if you go on Facebook, you may see a nice visual ad, but at the bottom is written text, and that's what we call copywriting, or the copy of an ad. And one of the most famous copywriters is this guy called Robert Collier. And I have one of his books, actually. It's called the Robert Collier Letter Book. And in that book, he talks about some of the work that he's done. And this is a story that I got from the book that he did 100 years ago. And what he did was, in the past, is what we call direct mail marketing, which sounds very old-fashioned. It's actually writing a sales letter, putting it in an envelope, and sending it out to people. Okay? And they were doing analytics back then. So you can look at the quote there, right, where it's looking at how much does it cost him to send out a letter, what is the conversion rate, what's the average sale per conversion, and so on, what's the margin. All of these marketing analytics being done 100 years with printed advertising, with paper. Fascinating stuff. The only difference that we've seen is an evolution. It's gotten more advanced. Okay, so we see a democratization of analytics where, firstly, data analytics is now seen as a competitive advantage. If you are not doing it, you are probably losing out as a company. And so companies are investing in analytics. And, think back historically, we're talking maybe 50 years ago. Data was owned, it was done by the IT department, who manage your CRM systems. You've got a server, a big server somewhere. It's not on Amazon or Google Cloud. It's actually a physical server somewhere. And if you wanted any analytics, you had to call up your IT department, who go to the system, and they will extract the data for you. Okay. But what we then got in the last 30 years, 30 years, is the rise of the data professional. So these are your data engineers, your data architects, your data analysts, who are coming in with your SQL skills, data architecture skills, ETL, and so on. And you get this whole middle section of people who can then sit between the IT guys and the business people, giving those insights. What I'm noticing over the last 2 years is analytics that is being, a lot of companies are actually trying to democratize it, make it more democratic, such that anybody in the company, or almost anybody in the company, can do their own analytics. Okay, so what that means is having an environment of data which is curated. It's very clean, it's not messy, it's very simple to use, it's been verified and validated by the data professionals. And people are equipped with those tools. It could be things like Power BI or Tableau. They can plug into the data and do the analytics themselves. So, analytics is here to stay, and more people are going to do it, even within the company. Okay. A good example is actually, I was talking to this guy at British Airways. It's interesting that actually, obviously not the pilots and the people working the aircraft, but within the company, they're using Tableau, such as lots of the managers, we're talking about product people or whatever, planners, people planning the routes, they can all plug into this common database and do their own analytics. It's actually, this is the future. And we talk about marketing that's now being seen as an investment. So historically, all right, people always saw marketing as a cost. Okay, we've got this much money, but we have to spend X amount on marketing. Because of the rise of marketing analytics, marketing can now start to be seen as an investment. Okay, to say that if you spend X on marketing, you will get Y back in sales or profits, or customers. Along that, with that, we actually get a trend called zero-based budgeting. Okay, what that means is, okay, before I talk about that, let's think about how marketing budgets are usually set by the company. Right? The company will usually sit back and say, okay, the marketing department had $1 million last year, so this year we'll give them $1.1 million. That's one approach. The second approach is to say we forecast sales of 5 million this year, and therefore let's give 20% to marketing. none of those approaches actually recognizes that if you don't spend on marketing, it will hurt your sales. If you spend on marketing, it will help your sales. It doesn't recognize that fact. With zero-based budgeting, what companies are now doing is saying, okay, the marketing team, tell me what marketing you want to do next year. And the marketing team will say, okay, I want to spend 1 million on A, 1 million on B, 1 million on C. They will then assess each of those items and say, okay, item A will spend 1 million and we expect to get back 2 million, approved. Item B will spend 1 million, but I think we only get back half of that, so not approved. Item C, you spend 1 million and we get back 5 million, approved. And therefore the marketing budget is 2 million. Okay, so that's what zero-based budgeting is. It's starting from zero and approving individual items, whether or not they provide a value for money. And the big companies are doing that. Hopefully you know Unilever, huge consumer goods business, running that owns a lot of your consumer brands like, okay, I don't want to name any names because I might get this wrong, but a lot of your consumer brands. So marketing analytics is being seen as an investment. That's a good thing. Now, what is exactly happening right now, today? Let's look at the CMO survey. Okay, it's a survey going out to, I think, about 500 chief marketing officers in companies. And we see a very slow but gradual rise in companies or CMOs saying that their companies are using marketing analytics to make decisions. Okay, and again, if you stay to the end, I will give you some examples of simple analytics that you can do. Okay, right. So, what else do we find from the CMO survey? As you would expect, companies that, okay, let me show you this. Okay, with my mouse. Companies which have more than 10% of sales from the internet, they spend, they consider their marketing analytics to be better than companies who do not do any of their sales online. Okay. So obviously there is a bias that online businesses are investing more in analytics and therefore growing their capabilities as a result. It's probably not a coincidence because it's easier to do analytics if a lot of your sales are happening online. But it could also suggest that it is the companies that are online who are more cutting edge and innovative who are investing in marketing analytics. Now, I work with a large B2B software company, okay, and they actually talk. They don't do their sales. They don't do a lot of their sales online. A lot of it happens through word of mouth, talking to their potential buyers in a B2B, business-to-business environment. But we did a lot of marketing analytics for them. Looking at what we can improve in terms of their CRM, looking at emails, looking at market research, trying to understand how we can improve the software features, what features to prioritize, what not to prioritize. And that's very important because even for a software company, if you want to develop a feature, it could cost you 100,000 to develop one feature, and it will take you 6 months. So before you decide to do that, you need to be very sure that it's going to be, that's going to be useful and valuable for your business. Okay, and lastly, we talk about the use of experiments, right? Where a year from now, so this CMO survey was done in February 2020. We look back a year. We see that a 3% rise, okay, in companies that are using experiments as a form of analytics. Okay, and again, this is one of the examples I will give you in the next section, which is our last section. So we'll probably have another. I know I said 1 hour 20 minutes. We are kind of 1 hour 22 minutes now, but I should be finishing the next few minutes. So, you guys may be familiar with the 80-20 principle, okay, that says that 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. So in marketing or marketing analytics, you can get most of the insight, most of the value from analytics just by doing a bit. So it's better to do a bit than to do nothing, and the result is quite substantial. And you probably know that from real life, right? If you spend 20% of your time doing a coursework, you might get a B. If you spend 2 weeks 24/7 working on it, you might get an A. Towards the end, it gets harder and harder to improve your grade. So with marketing analytics, I always advise my clients, don't aim for perfection. Okay, firstly, perfection is really costly, and the additional value, the additional insight that you get is not going to be worth it in most cases. Okay. And now let's talk about the value of disaggregated analysis. So, and this is probably the biggest thing. Okay? I talk about two things I'm going to talk about. This is the first thing I'm going to talk about, the first big valuable item for you, which is when you do analytics, always break things down. Value is obtained when you dissect a statistic. What do I mean? Let's look at Igniter, which was a dating platform, okay? A group dating platform launched in New York, where essentially people sign up as a group and they can go on dates as a group, okay? Now, it looked at all its, it could have done analytics to say, okay, this is how well we're doing, how badly we're doing, number of signups, and so on. But it started looking at things from a country to country perspective. And it realized that, oh, wow, actually in India is really doing very well, better than anywhere else in the world. So what Igniter did was that it pivoted, it changed the business completely. And now it is positioned as an Indian dating platform. By breaking things down, it could find a very useful insight that changed the whole business model position, and that really positioned it for success. Rather than just being a group dating platform, it is now the Indian dating platform and doing really well, or did very well. And likewise, not only disaggregating across countries, you can disaggregate across products, features, customer group, time, you look at trends, and so on. Let me give you an example. Imagine that you are a software company providing, I don't know, let's imagine you are this webinar software, right? Webinar.ru. And you see your user growth grow over time, over the last 12 months. So it's now December, and you're looking back, and you see the growth in users from 1,000 to 4,000 daily active users. So this is the analytics, right? It's an aggregate analytics, and you say, that looks good. But remember what I say, break things down, because that's where the insight comes from. What happens if we look at cohorts? Let's look at the people that the first time users from January, and let's track them over time. First time users in February, and track them over time. Then you get something that looks like this. Okay, obviously people try it. So in January, 1,000 people tried it. In February, only half of them are still using it. And in March, a few, even less people are using it, and so on. And you see this trend. Now you start to see something different. You start to see that in December, more than half of the people using the platform were actually first-time users in December. Less than 40%, or about 40% of the people who are using it in December actually came from previous months. So it doesn't start to look that good anymore. Okay, and it could be because in September, this company got a huge investment, and therefore they're investing now and trying to get lots of users. But they're investing in the wrong thing. They should actually be investing in, not in getting users, but investing in getting users to stick around, to stay. And not only that, you see more worrying things where in early days, look at January, okay, or February or March, about 50% of people stuck around the following month. But as we get closer and closer to more recent cohorts, okay, I think cohort is like a group of users that comes in at a particular time, almost like a university cohort, year groups. You see that as we get to more recent cohorts, the fall in active users were actually worse. That is actually concerning. Okay, now what I want to do now is just to show you how you can very quickly do this in Google Analytics. So this is Google Analytics. Let me zoom out. In Google Analytics, it's actually very easy for you to do this. So I'm in the Google test account. There's a sample account that you can use to play around with it. And okay, So let me, I probably shouldn't have been doing this live. I can't actually remember where this is. This is not gold. There we are. Okay, so it's a new feature. That's why I'm not familiar with it. A new feature launched in Google Analytics that allows you to do cohort analysis. So let's look at cohort analysis based on the Google data. All right, the Google merchandise store example data. So let's look over the last. Let's do a cohort bar. Let's look at weekly cohorts, and let's look across the last 12 weeks. Let's look at retention. Okay, so this is where we are. You can see that. Okay, then you scroll down and you get a very nice cohort chart. Okay, so you have weekly cohorts. These are all the, all the users that we get in 19th January to 25th January. 9,982 users. So in week 0, obviously that's their first week. There were 100% of them in week 0. In week 1, only 4% of them came back to the website. In week 2, 2% of them came back to the website. In week 3, and so on. Now, this is a very simple way for you in Google Analytics to understand how well your company is doing. Okay, just by looking at the averages. So if you look at the top row, okay, you're actually aligning all the week 0s and week 1 for each cohort, aligning it to the left. You can see on average, okay, it's 100% in week 0 and 3.6% in week 1. So that gives you an understanding of the average. But again, remember what I said, right? We want to disaggregate. Let's look at individual cohorts. So if you look not just across time, you can look across cohorts vertically, and you can see how well or badly that is. And Google Analytics colors it, so it's easy for you to see that, okay, in week 1, it was quite good, but in February and early March, retention went down. So fewer people came back. Why was that? Now, this is exploratory analysis. It doesn't really tell you the answer, but you can go back and see, okay, was it because of, was there a website redesign that put people off? Did we launch a new product? Did we change the price? You can start to try to understand the customer behavior. Okay, but this is exploratory analysis and it's very powerful, right? So that is Google Analytics. I could spend a lot of time talking about this, but we are running out of time and I need to move on. So let's talk about the next slide, which is talking about the Simpsons paradox. Okay, so sometimes if you disaggregate it and you look at individuals, at smaller groups, you sometimes get a reversal. You get an opposite insight almost, which shows you why it's important to do this. So this is an example from 1973, the most famous example. Okay, looking at the students who were accepted into the University of California, Berkeley. Okay, so we found that men were admitted 44% of the time. So 44% of the applicants, the male applicants, were accepted, but only 35% of the female applicants, okay, for a course were accepted. The university was quite concerned, and they got a researcher to look into this because they were afraid that they might get sued, for gender discrimination. And what they found out was that actually, when you looked at it at a department level, at individual departments, there was no sexism at all. In fact, actually, women were more likely to be accepted into any one department. So why do we get this thing at an aggregate level then? The reason was that women were more likely than men to apply to very competitive departments that were very unlikely to accept anyone, male or female. I just give a little example here. It's not a real example, but I didn't want to show you all. I think they had like 20 departments or something. I didn't want to do that. So imagine that there were just 2 departments in UC Berkeley. A department that accepts 50% of people and a department that accepts 10% of people. And they accept it similarly across men or women. and there are 1,000 men applicants and 1,000 female applicants. Okay, 90% of male applicants apply to the easy department, so that's 900 applicants, and 100 applicants to the difficult department. But for females, it's the opposite, right? Where 100 applicants applied to the easy department, but 900 of them applied to the difficult department. Okay, and then we just do 900, 50% admitted, that's 450. Females, 100 applicants for the easy department, 50 admitted. What about the difficult department? Okay, the more competitive department. Out of 100 men, 10 were admitted. Out of 900 women, 90 were admitted. So this is disaggregated analysis where you can see, well, actually, if you look at a per department level, they were accepted at the same rate. But if you aggregate it and you say, well, there were 460 men admitted out of 1,000, that's 46%. But females, only 140 out of 1,000, that's 14%. You get a different conclusion. And you would think that the university is sexist when they were not. Okay, so hopefully this illustrates to you that if you want to get any meaningful insight, you have to break things down. That is very important. Okay, it's the same thing with customer analytics. There's no point looking at doing customer analytics. You've got to look at, is customer A or customer segment A, is that different from customer B? Remember the example from Igniter earlier on? Look at different countries or different age groups and so on. This is where you get your value. All right. And this will be almost the last slide, okay, which is A/B testing. Now, hopefully most of you understand what A/B testing is. Okay, this is the number 2 technique that I'm going to teach you. Very simple to do. You want to send an email out to people. Forget emails. Let's use the example I use, which is a landing page. Okay, so what you do is that you have no idea whether your button should be orange or blue. Okay, or correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe that's green. Okay, but I'm a guy. I can't tell blue and green. So let's say that's blue. Okay, you're not sure if it's orange or blue, which is better. And so you run the test. Some people you show the orange button, some people you show the blue button. And you find out, oh sorry, I see something correcting me, green. All right, and some people you show the green button. Okay, in that case, you will run an experiment and see which group provides a higher, actually is more likely to click submit and join the platform. So this is a very simple, but this is used everywhere. You use that on website designs, because let's face it, do you know whether red or green or orange or green is better? Maybe not. Or maybe you know because you're an expert in colors, but do you know what words to use? What concept to talk about? So if you're launching a new product, should you talk about the fact that it's cheap or should you talk about the fact that it's convenient? No idea. Run the test. Okay, so you see that being used in website designs, you see that being used in landing pages, you see that being used in emails, in advertising, lots of places. And this is really very powerful and it's very, very simple. Run an experiment, test and compare. One of the most important approach that you need to have to marketing analytics is to say that you don't know. I mean, as a marketing consultant, I'm always being asked to advise people. And my most common answer is, I don't know. But because I'm a marketing consultant, I know how to get you the answer. I do the analytics, I do the research, I can find the people, find the data that can tell you what you need to know. Okay, so that's a very important way. Run an experiment. Now, in this particular case, you see 12% more submits in version B. It may seem like version B is better, but is that just chance? And that's where you need to use a t-test to test how sure you are that B is better. Okay, because if you run the experiment again, you may get a different result. I'm not going to go to t-testing. It's too technical for this. I haven't got time. I'm running out of time. But again, if you want to learn more about marketing analytics, I've got to again promote my course, which will be launched quite soon. So just go to my website, put your details. I'll let you know when it's launched. So in summary, yes, your favorite slide, which is the last slide. Marketing analytics is old stuff. There's nothing new about it. Smart companies are investing in marketing analytics and seeing it as a tool to help them succeed in the future. There are some principles that you need to bear in mind that I talked about. So that is the 80-20 principle. Try to get as much done as possible, horizontally, but not vertically. Yeah, try to focus on as many opportunities as possible, but don't torture any one opportunity too much, because you're not going to get much value from additional effort. Disaggregated analysis. Be experimental, including things like A/B testing, which is the easiest experiment to run. And the two simple techniques I talked to you about, yeah? So A/B testing and cohort analysis. Okay. And that is the end. So let's just take some quick Q&As, and then I will let you get on with your very busy day on Netflix. Any questions? In the meantime, if you guys haven't already, go to my website. That's www.gordonlee.co.uk/HSE. Put in your name and email address. And if you have any comments, any questions, you can send it to me as well on the form. I will send you a version of the recording, information about an upcoming course, and you will get some of the articles that I put out every now and then. Any questions? I might just give it another 30 seconds or so. Otherwise, I will assume that all of you are happy, you have no questions, and either that or you have more important things to do. Oh, hang on, I see there's a questions bit. Okay. Okay, sorry. I realized there's a different question section as opposed to the chat section, but I mean there's no questions there for this particular bit. All right, okay. If that's the case, I'm going to end it there. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. And again, remember, leave your name, email address over there, and hope to see you again soon. Take care. Goodbye.
There anyway. But thank you very much, and I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Thank you.